The only people for me are the mad ones.
The world is filled with the boring and the barely conscious.
The misery loves company.
But we don't have to live this way.
Jessica and I are here to talk to those the system rejects, to radicals and thought criminals.
The ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but push the boundaries of acceptable discourse.
Those who stare reality in the face and dare it to be different.
History isn't made by the timid, and fun is not had by the perpetually afraid.
We are the mad ones.
So let's get to it.
Welcome to the Mad Ones. I've been told that this shirt is coral, but I'm colorblind, so I just have to trust my wife, host Cam Harless. And with me, as always, is your soup season begins whenever she wants it to begin. Hostess,
Right.
Miss Jessica Green. How are you doing, Jessica?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you today, Cam? In your your very handsome coral shirt.
Well, the good thing about the coral shirt is, if I wear the black, the hair doesn't show up, and that's what people come for, the hair and the beard.
They do. That's true.
So that's the only reason they're here. And so, this just makes it easier.
Our entire audience is beard based. So
it's true. It's true. Yeah. Completely beard based. I get it. I got it from my dad. So before we get started, I do want to just quickly say, if you like really great beef jerky, check out righteousfelon.com and use promo code MADONES to get 10% off. And you can get all sorts of great flavors of beef jerky. In addition to that, as Jessica was raising her coffee cup to show you, if you love coffee, they have some great coffee over at Run Your Mouth Coffee, rymcoffee.com. Promo code the Mad Ones, you get 10% off that as well. Why not? They have some great coffee. They have some that's like aged in bourbon barrels. It's so good. But let me go ahead and introduce our guest for tonight. It's actually a very special guest. So I would really rather everyone in the comments, everyone that's going to say anything, to be on your P's and Q's and watch your language. Our guest works day in and day out helping women who have been through the tragedy of abortion. Her mission is to help them find the cross, forgiveness, forgive themselves, and to be set free from the pain that comes from having an abortion. So please welcome the woman who expelled me from her loins about 33 years ago, my mother and the executive director of Abortion Recovery Alabama, Miss Cindy Harless. How you doing, Mama?
I can still feel the pain of you coming out of my loins.
Now, inquiring minds would like to know if he had the beard already when he came out.
Absolutely, yes.
Right,
he came out with the beard.
Of course,
he was Now I do, but I do have a picture of him as a baby. I thought we would try to embarrass him as much as possible while I was here. Yes. So here we go. Here's the baby picture.
Aww.
Oh, wasn't he cute?
Yes.
Yes, he was a horrible child, though.
He's a horrible adult.
He had colic when he was little, so we called him Pooter Butt. So that is his nickname, was Pooter Butt. You told me I could say anything.
I'm
going to call you. I will call you Pooter Butt for the rest of the time that I know you. You can count on that.
Oh,
thank you for telling me that.
Oh, he had several. He also had the nickname Kamikaze Cam, because wherever he went, he would be on a couch or something, and he'll just throw himself, and you're supposed to catch him. And half the time you're just walking past the couch, and all of a sudden this little animal comes running at you. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to drop him.
And I have 3 of those in my house right now, doing the same thing.
See, that's the revenge of the gods, is that whatever kind of child you are, they send you 3 times as much of that. So enjoy.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
I'm not looking forward to all of it, because I was actually a pretty good kid. I just wasn't a compliant child. I had this realization not that long ago, that you would call my older brother, talk about how compliant he was. And then I always took that as some kind of insult. And then now in this day and age, the way that I am, and how I kind of buck up against kind of stuff that's not good, I'm like, maybe a little lack of compliance isn't a horrible thing. You know what I mean? Like maybe this wasn't so bad.
I agree. I agree. And I'm not going to say anything else about that now. Okay. We will just cut that conversation right there with your older brother. Yes.
Twitter is really happy that they know this name now.
Well, he was just a little gassy when he was young. I don't know what to
Still
say.
am. My wife says that it was a mistake to homeschool me because I never learned how to make my farts quiet.
Did she know that I didn't start homeschooling you till you were in the 8th grade?
But the joke isn't as good if you include all of the background information.
Okay. Oh.
Woo.
So, one of the reasons that I had you on, besides the fact that I love you and that you're gorgeous and you look just like me, is that what you do as a job is something that I've always been very proud of. Not a lot of so when it comes to the pro-life conversation, there are few people that I know who have had as in-depth a study of it or an experience with it as I have, since that's been your ministry and your mission since I was a baby. Like there are pictures, I don't know if you have any with you, but there are pictures of me as like a very young toddler at the March for Life and stuff like that. Wow. So it's something that I've always deeply cared about, and it's something that I've always been extremely strong on. Like that's a hill I'll die on. There are a lot of hills I won't die on. Excuse me. But I am proud of what you do, and what you did for years and years was you helped women who were considering abortion. And that was most of my life. Was you were a counselor for women who were in dire straits and were considering having an abortion. You would help them make that decision not happen. You'd help them to choose a different path than killing their child. And that was always like every time y'all had a what's it called, a fundraiser, it was always on my birthday for some reason. But
it wasn't it?
Like every year.
It
was always on my birthday. But
did you want to tell everybody your birthday so they'll send you gifts? It's coming up.
It's next month. If you want to send me gifts, you can. I will provide the information you need. But no, so you did
definitely
that.
Won't abuse this information at all.
But you did that for a number of years, most of my life. And then how many years ago did you shift your ministry and your calling?
Actually, I didn't shift so much because it's very interesting that you talk about it has been all your life, because I've asked you that before. When did you know about abortion? Because I mean, a lot of women have to say, okay, I got to tell my kids, And I remember asking you that question. You said, well, I've just always known.
Literally always.
You knew. And that's interesting because I had an abortion in 1977, and that was only 4 years after Roe v. Wade was made abortion legal in the United States. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't like a common thing. I mean, I don't know. I was 18. I didn't watch the news. If it was on the news, I didn't know it. And I really didn't know what abortion was. But when I went down there, and had the abortion, and then it was 12 years later, actually, when you were born in like 90, in 89, 90, that someone...
But you know that I was born in 1988, though, right? You remember that it's 88, right?
That's close enough. Don't interrupt her. Please continue.
Sorry.
I think you're right. I think you were born in 88.
It's true.
Your dad and I both have messed you up along the way, haven't we?
Yep.
You got to tell them about the time you went to basketball.
We'll get to that. But
Okay,
sorry,
I'm sorry.
I derailed. I derailed. So around the time I was born,
it was about 12 years after, and someone at church had told me about a group to go to, and I went to the group, and it was like 6 weeks. I didn't even know I needed help. I didn't even know I had issues. But like with the word abortion coming up, or I saw it on TV at that point, my stomach would not up. And I was like, okay. And I just really felt like God said, you got to do something about it. And when this lady said, go to this group, I just went to the group. I was obedient. I cried for like 6 weeks. But when I got on the other side of that, I was a different person, and it completely changed me. That is when I knew that this was my ministry and this is what I would do eventually. All the other stuff I did up until that time of like 2006, when I started teaching this, was God was just preparing me and giving me the steps so that I would know how to run a ministry, how to do fundraisers, and plus I was raising my family at the time. So it wasn't until my youngest went into school that I started volunteering there, and then in 2006 I started teaching Forgiven and Set Free.
Right. That's very interesting that you talked about not knowing that you needed help. Because I think that in abortion, especially and I think it may even be worse than the culture that we have today, is there's not much in the way of like aftercare or support for women who do have this procedure. And so you're either supposed to be shouting your abortion because you're so proud that you've had this done, or you're shamed into silence and you're not supposed to ever speak of the terrible thing you've done. And that doesn't leave women who find themselves, a decade later in terrible regret. Like, what do I even do with this terrible burden that I'm holding on to? And, I think that's really something that a lot of women need to hear about, that there is support, because they don't tell you that. They just do it, and then they set you off on the street, and there you go.
And that's really true. They don't usually offer any kind of follow up for emotional or spiritual issues. And a lot of times you'll go to the church and you'll get judged. I mean, let's be real. The church has not done a very good job of ministering to women like me. And after I had the abortion, I went in a downward spiral and started doing drugs and drinking and partying. And, I was promiscuous. And so I went down a really bad road until I actually felt like I was suicidal. And about that time is when I actually, my sister came and shared Jesus with me. And when she did, I got saved. And I don't know if you guys want me to go into my testimony or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it was just, I got in that downward spiral, and I just thought, I'm working to buy food, to eat, to go back to work. And it was like it was just a cycle, and there was nothing to it, and by that time I was doing pills, and I was smoking. I know you guys call it weed now, but we used to call it pot back in the day. And they make fun of me when I say I was smoking pot now. But when I tell my story to the girls, but when my sister had gone to Mississippi, and while she was there, she had found an intimate relationship with Jesus. Now, we had grown up in the Methodist church, but I had not ever had a relationship with Jesus. And when she came back, I went to church with her. I finally broke down and went to church. And when I went to church with her, I remember walking in, it was kind of a hazy. I don't know if it was the depression that was going on or if it was the drugs or whatever. But when I walked into the church, I looked at these other people and they were happy. And I thought, they've got something that I don't have. And whatever it is, I need it.
Yeah.
And I went, and at that day, they had an altar call, and I went up. And when they told, and I'm one of those people that I had I felt dirty. I felt nasty. I felt used. I just unworthy, just hopeless. And that day I could actually feel the sin just being taken off of my shoulders. And at that point, I became this crazy radical Christian who ran around telling everybody about Jesus. And then all my drug buddies dropped me and my drinking buddies dropped me and they all got mad at me. So, but I moved on. But when I walked out of the door of that church, I'm telling you, the grass seemed greener and the sky seemed bluer than it was when I came in. I was truly a new creation in Christ. It was one of those really, oh my goodness, salvation. Not everybody, like Cam, he was saved when he came out of my loins, like he said to begin with, but some of us take a longer route.
Yeah, you and Dad.
Yes.
Which, not to, down the conversation, the anniversary of him passing is this month.
Yes.
And, his testimony, his change was it's an interesting thing growing up in a family where both of the parents had radical changes in their lives, where they had radical interactions with Christianity, with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit, because we're charismatic. And so my dad used to be a heroin addict, and he went through Teen Challenge, and he had just as a major moment as my mom had, except he got saved one night at Teen Challenge, which is a kind of drug rehabilitation program that's Christian, that's out of the Assemblies of God church. He was withdrawing from heroin. And so he got saved that night. He went to bed. He slept for 3 days and then woke up past the withdrawals. And so there's that story. There's my mom's. And so it's this interesting place. I was raised by radicals. And so to not be radical in my own way is that would be me rebelling.
There's something very powerful to that 3 days, like that he slept for 3 days, because it reminds me so much of Lazarus in the tomb for 3 days and then he's risen.
Jonah.
Christ in the tomb for 3 days, Jonah. Yeah. And so it to me, that really shows the hand of God working in that you're down for 3 days and then you come back up, risen, exalted, a new person, illuminated, whatever you want to call it. That's a powerful story for sure.
And so I come from powerful stories. And so I think that that's partially why I am the way that I am. Well, I mean, it's fully why I am the way that I am. But on top of that is I really love story, and I love narrative. I love testimony. I love these things. And that's why it's always so disappointing when Christians, or, back in my libertarian days, libertarians couldn't tell a story for their lives. And it always was so frustrating. My mom, ask her how many times I said bad things about Flywheel and what's that other one? Facing the Giants.
Facing the Giants. Yeah, there were some pretty B flicks out there. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But one of the things you said was how the church hasn't treated women who've had abortions very well as well. And that's something that as a man, I haven't noticed as much, because I've not had that experience. I've never had it. But what is interesting to me is that I didn't notice it through you, my mother. I noticed it through Jessica, and how when she's talked about abortion and regretting abortion, there are these people who call themselves Christians who come out and call her a murderer, who assign that label to her, who call her these terrible names. And we were having a conversation the other day, and I was like, I can't tell you what this is or the specific name, but it's not Jesus. And if a Christian does that to you, another Christian, that comes from the devil. And so, it's one of those conversations that I think needs to happen, because people will not let women regret abortion.
Right.
And so, I think that's a travesty.
Full disclosure to our audience, I had a pregnancy terminated when I was a teenager, when I was 19 years old. Not entirely different than Cindy's story. Afterward, there was not a lot in the way of aftercare or support. And I went down a path of drinking and drugs and, gallivanting and pretty much pain avoidance in every form that it would take. And it wasn't until, I'm 38 now, and only in the last 3 years have been experiencing a spiritual conversion toward Christianity, that I've actually been able to, first of all, quit smoking pot. And when you do that, all of the things that you were using drugs to push down below the surface sort of come bubbling back up to the surface, and you have to deal with them. And one of the major things, of course, is the fact that I had an abortion. I had a pregnancy terminated. And there are people from my current church who do watch my podcast with Cam. And so when I knew that we were doing this episode, I started to become nervous because I thought, okay, people from the church are going to find out about this. They're going to know my dark secret. While I have been able to be open in sort of like the secular arena on Twitter, I've talked openly about I've had an abortion. I deeply regret it. They don't want women like me to tell our stories, but we are out there. So I have been open in that regard. But the idea of my church community finding out about it was really difficult for me. And so actually a couple of days ago, I ended up sort of like tearing off the Band-Aid in that regard. And I talked to a woman from my church about my story. And I was a mess, telling her. I was standing in her driveway, like bawling my eyes out about it. And she was so understanding and really wanted me to know, like, hey, do you know you're not the only one? There are others in our church like this. I still love you. And, these are all things that women who are like sort of living in that regret, they don't know that they can reach out for that. They don't, and the thing that you just said, Cindy, that really struck me was the feeling dirty, feeling polluted. There are times when I'm not even able to pray because I feel so unworthy and so polluted. And as Cam's been like a rock with this stuff because I've been able to be open with him and talk. Weirdly, he's a man and I'm able to like talk to him about this stuff, but he has told me like, that's not Jesus. That's not, that's something else. That's not the people who come after you and want you to be like this. I had a guy on Twitter. It was really important to him that I said to him, I am a murderer. And he needed me to say that to him. And Cam was like, no, that's not Christ. You don't need to confess to him, So, we're really stuck in limbo. Women who had done this and regret it feel like they're pro-life. I'm now pro-life, even though I've had an abortion. I don't know where I stand in the world. And so his thing was, hey, do you want to talk to my mom? And I was like, I said, yes, but I think everyone should talk to your mom. It's not just me who needs to hear this. It's so many women that they just, both sides of the aisle, whether you're conservative or liberal, just don't want to even acknowledge that we exist.
Right.
And I guess if I could maybe ask you to elucidate, when women come to you, like, what are you telling them? What are some things that, if there are women who are going to listen to this episode who are stuck in that limbo, not feeling like they can reach out, feeling polluted, like they can't even lift their eyes up to pray, what do you tell them? What are some of the things that like a broken woman like me might come to you? What might you say?
Well, one thing that I like to always realize is that everyone's unique. Everybody comes from a unique situation. So what I may say to one woman, I may not say to another, depending on what's going on. But I will say this, that the blood of Jesus is the blood of Jesus, and it covers all sin, or it doesn't cover any sin at all. So you guys, this guy that's trying to tell you to say that you're a murderer or whatever, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So if my sin of murder that I have confessed to the Lord is not covered in the blood, then none of his are covered in the blood either, and he won't be going to heaven either. So he needs to really get a check, you know. And I can get a little irritated with people when they say things.
Oh, get
like
irritated.
that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, seriously, you know, you've walked on water, you know? I don't think so. Show me the scars in your hand. Okay, I'm going too far now. I'm sorry.
No.
Well, it's funny because I have only been in like a couple of fights in my life, and they were all kid crap. But there's one instance that almost became like a real life adult man fight. And that was when I was in college. We went through an ethics class. I don't know if I've told you this or not before, Mom. But we were in an ethics class, and my roommate at the time was taking that. And he is like the only person I've ever met that's been pro-life that has talked about punishing women for abortions, because that is not the pro-life stance, especially not the Christian pro-life stance. And so we went through this ethics class, and we were driving at night at some point, and he made the statement that any woman that has had an abortion, he wishes he could punch them in the face, and he would punch them in the face right now. And to tell you, I grabbed, you know who I'm talking about. It was my first roommate, and a good kid otherwise. But I will tell you that he did not expect my hand on the back of his neck squeezing, not joking, just like, and I said, "Say it again." And he goes, "What?" And I go, "Say it again. You're talking about my mom. If you're going to say it again. Let's get this over with." And he goes, I think I might be wrong."
You think? What do you think?
Because I'm, you know me, I'm this affable, happy, not fighty dude. But like, if I get to that point, I become a little intimidating. And he had never seen that part of me before, which I get from my dad, which is a very intimidating thing.
Yes.
Holy cow. But he hadn't had that. And that was the one time I was willing to have a literal beat someone to death moment. And it was all because they talked about my mama.
Well, you know, you have to realize that 67% of women wouldn't have abortions if they didn't feel like they were pressured into them. If they had a man that stands beside them and says, "Hey, let's have this baby," or a mom or dad or family that they feel like they can talk to, if they have a network, they have a support system. But, and I'm not saying that everybody's going to make that choice, but like I said, 67% of women feel like they're pressured into having the abortion. The guy blows it off. And the number one, something like, and I just heard this at a conference I went to, something like 89% of women said that if the father of the baby had stepped up and said, "Hey, I want to keep this baby, I will do," I'm not saying to get married. Okay. Don't hear me saying that, but if I will help you have this child, that woman would have had that baby. And so there's a big movement now for men who have been part of an abortion experience to get healing as well, because some men actually have issues when they come out on the other side.
I know with my particular case, I went to every like adult in my life, because at 19, you're not an adult, no matter what the law says. At least in this day and age, I was not a fully formed adult at that point. And I went to every adult in my life. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And every single one of them was, "I don't know. I can't tell you." And I had no guidance whatsoever. And I felt extremely alone, and was like, "There's just no way I can have a baby. I wouldn't know what to do with a baby." Like, just absolutely lost as for how I would take care of the child, what I would do. I was my boyfriend was abusive, and I had fled the country to get away from my abusive boyfriend. I was in a foreign country living with people that I barely knew that were strangers, and then found out that I was pregnant. Now, I'm not making excuses. I still made a decision. I'm responsible for it. However, I do think that there's some truth to a lack of support structure is like,
Mhm.
this seems like your only option. It almost at the time seemed like the responsible thing to do.
Right.
And little did I know that, 10 years, 20 years down the line, it was going to come back hit you like a Mack truck,
Yes.
the enormity of the decision that you had made when you were a teenager.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yes. And that reminds me, I really wanted to read this little excerpt, and I've got a book this thick that I go through with the girls, but I felt like I was supposed to read this one, and it's
Yeah.
the biblical perspective on post-abortion distress. And it says, God created human life. He places a sacred value on mankind because men and women are the only creatures made in his own image. God gives every mother a nurturing instinct and a natural bond with her children that begins the moment she conceives. Abortion is a choice to reject the maternal bonding, damages this very strong God given maternal instinct. And this is the part that's always just touched me. It said, even an animal which has no moral consciousness pays a price when its offspring are aborted. For example, a veterinarian advised a family that their dog might experience a change in personality, refuse to eat, or become aggressive or withdrawn if her puppies were aborted. How much greater are the consequences in a human being, one of God's image bearers?
Right.
Can I want to just briefly talk about the idea of being an image bearer,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that there's a lot of confusion about what that means. Like, there are some people who think that means people can think. It thinks that people look like God in some way, like physically, like all of these different things. But if you actually, I just want to say this because it's such an important point and something that was so important when I read this and came to this conclusion, is the word that's used. It's a better translation would be an imager of God. It's a job as well as a description. So what we are meant to do as humans is to create, to tend the garden, to be fruitful and multiply, and to we are taking part in the creation story of God when he's resting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think, sorry for that random tangent, but I think it's important that people realize that it's not just a description, but it's a job description. It's what we're supposed to be doing. And so I've talked about this with different people in the past, the idea that when you have an abortion, when abortions happen, it's a break in the psyche, because we are made with this very specific design to do a specific job, which is to create, to give life, to do this. And we are taking that away in the most silently violent way that exists. And so there's so much that we do and we co-sign as a culture that regularly does this, these different sins, as they were like sin is also a concept that a lot of people don't fully understand. They want to make it very simple when a lot of it is it's not nuanced in the way of, oh, this is a nuanced conversation. It's not, but there's so much to it that's missed. But there are a lot of things within our culture that want to see the end of reproduction, the end of that's the big thing. They want to see older people leave us sooner. They want, like, there is a giant push in our culture that's primarily pushed by the left, but is also pushed by the right in different ways. It's like a complete picture, if you put them together, that is very anti-human. And so I just feel like that needs to be said, because
Well,
it's not just abortion.
Yeah.
There are so many things that they push, and if you actually pay attention to all of the things they push, the popular things that they push, they're very against the promulgation and the creation of more humans. And
Yeah.
people need to be aware of that, I feel.
Yes.
There's also this I've noticed sort of like women specifically have this sacred role of being the bearers of the next generation. And you see all the time in our culture this sort of like denigration of womanhood. So not just motherhood itself, but the very sacred nature of being female or being a woman is sort of being cast aside in favor of oh well, anybody can decide that they're a woman, and it doesn't really mean to feed a child from your breast and to bear them from your womb, and all of like the really sacred things that come from being our gender. And I do see that anti-human trend that Cam is talking about, like almost specifically it's geared at men too, so I'm not trying to like say that men are not the victims of this culture as well, but I see a very specific attack on what it means to be a woman, and that womanhood is not inexorably linked with motherhood.
Well,
And there's a separation of those two ideas that I think is very deadly to the survival of our species, you know?
Yeah.
Not to mention that the feminist, at least the conclusion of how feminism has run is that women, in order to have worth, have to be more like men.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
And that, regardless of any of the intentions of any feminist out there that thinks that they're doing good work, at the end of the day, they are trying to act like they're pushing away one of the the most beautiful thing that they can do, which, you know, I like it so much I've done it 5 times. Like I need to stop, but this is there. It is no small feat to create a human, and it is no. It's amazing to me that the at least reported common average idea of pregnancy is that it's bad.
Yes.
What a bizarre world we live in, where the idea of creating new life and new brains that can do new and good and cool and holy things shouldn't happen because you need to have a job.
That was deeply imprinted in my head when I was a teenager. Find out that I'm pregnant, and my first thought is my life is ruined. And that's because all through my girlhood and my childhood, I had heard nothing from both the school, the teachers, and the adults in my life. If you get pregnant, your life will be ruined. And they treat motherhood as though it's something that will, you know, just take all the opportunity out of your life. You won't have the opportunity to go on and be a famous actress or a lawyer or a doctor or any of these things because now you're a mother. And isn't it terrible to be a mother? And that's deeply imprinted in the head of young girls who are told, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant. Now, I understand we don't want teen pregnancies. It's not necessarily the best thing to get pregnant when you're so young. But at the same time, it's not going to ruin your life either. It's a great blessing. And, you know, I wish I had had people to guide me in that knowledge to say, hey, this is, and the thing that you read, Cindy, was so powerful. Like, this is a sacred bond. So it's something that's very sacred to women, that we are given the gift of being able to create life. And, you know, if I should ever get so lucky as to have a child, I would imprint on them that, you know, life bearing is a beautiful thing. It's not ruinsome. It doesn't make you a ruined woman to be a mother. If anything, it's the other way around. So
it makes you ask, how did we get here? How did we get to this place where I think it started in the 60s when we were supposed to fry up the bacon and no, buy the bacon fried up in the pan and still not let you forget you're a man. I don't know if you remember this really old song, because I'm really old. So shut up, Cam. I see
I
you.
was born in 1988. Just keep that in your head. 1988.
But it was that we would be, just like you said, masculine. And I don't want to be masculine. I embrace my femininity.
Yeah.
I really do. And another thing that you guys were talking about was like the men part of it. We as women were created to bear life. And like Cam was saying, we were all supposed to be creating. But that's even why veterans that come back from war, they struggle with PTSD. Thank you. Because they're not created to kill. They're created to make life. Don't you go anywhere. I don't know where you're going.
I was just going to say, you listen to me.
No, I don't listen to you.
Because that was like my big point when I first started thinking about war, was that this is not what we're made to do.
We're not created to take life. We are created to create life, and especially women, women.
Yeah. And well, one of the things that's interesting to touch on as a man who's had 5 children is, it's a very different situation for me than it has been for my wife. Because she feels the little flutters early on. I won't be able to. I'm not able to feel them till much later in the process. She feels this connection. She talks to the baby, and no matter how much I try, I can't talk to that baby as much as she does. I'm sure those babies got used to my loud voice over time. It was so funny because there was one time that I was talking very loudly. And Kaylee usually hates that. But I think it was Ezra, maybe. He just calmed down because he heard me. He was kicking and up a storm, and then he heard me start talking, and he calmed down. And so, like, over the course of pregnancy, I do have some sort of a bond, but it all comes to a head literally when you start seeing the head emerge. And for me, it all hits almost all at once. And I cry. I've cried with every baby. I see that little hairy cone head coming at me, and I start crying. Mom was in the other room as we had our last baby in the house. But I will say that I was scared to death of pregnancy for the first 2 or 3. Like, I was always scared we were going to lose them because we got married and she got pregnant a month later, and we lost that baby I think it was about 8 weeks after. And I have a little tattoo here that I'll get covered up with something else at some point, because apparently everyone thinks it's a Harry Potter tattoo, and I hate that with my whole heart. But even though I knew she was pregnant for only several weeks, when that baby was no longer, I have never felt that sort of sorrow in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I've had other very important people to me die, but it doesn't hold a candle to the girl I never got to hold. And so I think that my mom's right. More men need to speak about this. I forget what the situation was. I was talking to someone. I think I was on a show at some point, and I was talking about something, and she had said, "I don't know why men don't talk about this more." And I was like, I can't remember what the subject was. I'm terrible at retaining information, apparently. But I think about that now because this is a conversation that men need to have. My boys, hopefully they won't be dumb teenagers. I pray they won't be dumb teenagers and do dumb things. But I guarantee you that if they do dumb things, they're going to be well prepared to take care of their dumb choices and raise a baby. They're going to be well prepared, and I'm going to be there to say, we'll take care of the baby. If you need us to adopt that baby, we'll adopt that baby. We'll do whatever it takes. And men are so shunned by the pro-abortion crowd unless they're on the same page. Men who are pro-abortion get shouted from the rooftops.
Yeah.
But if a man says, I don't think this is a good thing, it's no uterus, no opinion.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, I'm willing to fight you over that.
Well, it's half your baby. And you know, when that sperm and that egg unite and there's a blast,
Yeah,
there's
that's really cool.
it's really cool.
Have you seen that
And
before, Jessica?
Yes, I have. Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm
It's
a
amazing.
biology major. They show that in class. The electrical spark, the literal spark of life that happens
Yeah.
once the sperm is inside the egg. There's an electrical spark around the egg to prevent any other sperm from coming inside the egg. At that point, it seals, and it's a visible, like like a visible light that bursts off of the egg, and that was an astonishing moment to witness.
Yes. And from that very first cell, there is everything that child will need. The hair color, the eye color, everything is in that first cell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All the chromosomes. It's
Yep.
it's just incredible. And
So-
so we can't. And that's what they told me. It was just a blob of cells.
Yeah, you
And
hear that
that's
a lot.
common. Or sometimes they'll say a blob of tissue or a piece of tissue or something like that. It's not, and I'm just like, you guys are just, you don't want to know what it is,
That's
Yeah.
the thing. And
Mm.
when you talk about chromosomes, I know that in some places, like in Scandinavia, for example, they have tests where they can tell you if the child has a potential of having Down syndrome or not. And they've almost eliminated their population of people with Down syndrome because people who have this test done will often have an abortion. But what a lot of people don't know about that test is that 1 in 3 is a false positive.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't know that.
I know a lot of people who are perfectly normal people whose parents were told that they would have Down syndrome. And when they came out of the womb, the parents decided to have them anyway. When they came out of the womb, they did not have Down syndrome. And so there are parents who are making this choice based on eugenics that they're not going to bring a child with Down syndrome into the world who, 1 in 3 chances that's a false positive. It's not a perfect test. And recently, things for people with Down syndrome have improved by leaps and bounds. And so the ability of people with Down syndrome to live somewhat normal lives is increasing, like shooting through the roof. And recently there was a man, I'm not going to remember his name off the top of my head, but he has Down syndrome, and he gave testimony in front of the UN. And he said, look, I am a man. I don't need to be pure. I need to be loved. And it really struck me. I said, if this doesn't make someone pro-life, I really don't know what will. Because, he very intelligently articulated the fact that, I'm a human being. He said,
Right.
I'm a man. I don't need to be pure. I need to be loved. I need to be educated. And sometimes I need help. But, I deserve to live. And, so that was a seminal moment for me that made me reconsider my position on abortion, because I had had an abortion and because I wasn't aware that mentally I was in deep pain from it. I became one of these women who shouted my abortion. I was so happy I had an abortion and it made my life better and all of these things. And then I saw this man speaking before the UN, realizing that, there is a push in the world that they don't want humans like him to even exist anymore. And he's fighting for his existence. And it made me really reconsider a lot of my sort of pro-choice positions. And that, coupled with other events in my life, sort of started bringing to the surface, oh my God, I killed my own baby. That's not something that fits in a woman's brain very easily. And so you have to say, well, it was just a clump of cells. It was just a zygote. It wasn't a human, and you go through all of these things, but it's justification. You know, it's a human being from the minute that sperm meets that egg, and as you said, everything that you will be is sealed, you know, as far as like your hair color, your eye color, your chromosomes, all of those things, sealed in that moment with a genuine spark of life. And, you know, coming to grips with that, I think it's a lot easier to say, well, I didn't really do that. I didn't really kill somebody. I'm not a murderer. I didn't really kill somebody, you know? But you did. You did do that. And coming to grips with it is beyond hard. And so women who do that, who actually have to go through that pain and understanding what they did, I think that there is a measure of bravery to it.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
There's a lot of forces in the world that tell you, you know, no, you don't have to think of it this way. It's okay if you don't see it that way. But, you know, there are those of us who do it and really come to grips with it. And, you know, if that's you and you're in that position, you're listening to this now, I want you to know that I think you're brave for doing that. And it doesn't feel good. None of it feels good, but it's a lot braver than just making excuses.
So I don't want you to like name any names or anything, but I was curious, Mom. When it comes to how this affects women, would you be willing to share some of the, I mean, I know that some of them are more extreme than others, and there's been some weird stuff. I don't want you to say anything that's going to get you in trouble or mess with any confidentiality or anything like that. But what are some of the ramifications that women who've had abortions go through?
Yeah.
Because I don't think people know this.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say too much about some of it, but I can tell some of the facilitator stories because they tell their stories. But I just have to say out loud that it is devastating to sit in my office with a lady across from me crying because she was pregnant with a Down syndrome baby. She went to the abortion clinic, had an abortion. They perforated her uterus, and she had to go to the ER, and she had lost her womb. You know, she will never have children now. And to see how she is freaking out trying to figure out how to get a surrogate so that she can have children. I mean, I've seen some pretty horrific things. The woman that had the late term abortion, and you know, that was back in the day when they used the saline solution. They don't do that anymore. But she was like 5 months pregnant, and they inject saline into the placenta, and then it burns the skin of the baby until the baby dies. I mean, some of this stuff is just horrific things that they do. But you know, and even if it is just the first trimester ones that are not quite as horrific as some of those, is, you know, I can just even, like one lady, she was probably 50%, and this is really interesting to me. 1 in 4 women will have an abortion. Okay. Also, 1 in 4 women will be molested or in some way. There's got to be some correlation to this. And I would say that over 50% of the women that come to my classes have had been molested as children, and or raped, you know, a little bit later on. And I think when that happens, you lose your sense of self, you lose your value, you it's just like it doesn't matter, you know. And I know that a lot of these women, and I can talk about Heather. I'll give Heather's story, and you can find some of our stories up online if you want to go to our website.
Abortionrecoveryalabama.org.
Yes. And but Heather was actually raped. And then, but for some reason in her mind, she felt like since this was her very first experience, that she had to stay with the guy. So she stayed with the guy and he continued to abuse her. And then she finally broke up with him, finally figured it out. But after that relationship, when she met her husband and she told him, she said, "Look, I've been raped. I've had an abortion. I'm unworthy. You can't marry me." She didn't feel like she was worthy enough
Yep.
to marry a decent guy.
Yep. I know that exact feeling. Like I had to warn him, by the way, you're going to marry someone terrible. And I think you deserve the chance to get out before you do it.
Yes.
And thankfully he didn't see it that way. So
yes. And it, like I said, they can tell their stories better than I can, but God just it's we and this is my thing is we as women, or we as post-abortion women, to me, we're queens of denial. And so it's kind of like you said, how you had to, once you stop smoking pot, then, or weed. I'm sorry, I say weed.
We're
I call it
we're
pot
millennials.
too. So
We're
Yeah.
millennials. We still use pot. It's the
You
Zoomers
still
doing
say,
the word of mouth.
"Oh, okay." It's those girls that I've got coming in now. I tell you what's coming in now is that, well, wait a minute, let me finish that. But we're queens of denial and we push our feelings down. And
Mhm.
eventually, that, just like you said, they're going to bubble back up. They're not going to stay there forever. But I have women in now, and our biggest thing is that they're having medical abortions. And so and sometimes, you can even get them just by mail. I mean, they're trying to get that passed. I'm not sure exactly where that is now, but these women will take the pill at the abortion clinic, then they go home all
Yep.
by themselves. And some of them are all by themselves.
That was me.
And they've told me stories about how they thought they were going to die, and that they're like, "Call me because I'm going," and they tell them that it's not going to be anything but like cramps or something. And these women are almost like bleeding out, and it's horrible. And then many of them are coming to us now early because they actually have seen the baby when they passed the baby in the toilet.
Yeah.
And that's tough. I can't imagine. It's hard enough. I had a surgical abortion. But to have a medical abortion and be all by yourself, or to be in a situation where you really feel like you're going to die, that's just trauma on top of trauma.
Yep.
It's very traumatic.
Yep. And there's no counseling. They don't offer. I mean, not that there isn't counseling. There is, obviously,
Mhm.
Cindy. You
Yeah.
run a counseling center, but they don't say, okay, now that this has happened, you should go get counseling, which is something they should tell every woman who has this procedure, because frankly, there are emotional ramifications no matter who you are. And I know a lot of women claim, oh, I didn't have any problem, I don't have any regrets, so on and so forth. But really, you're telling yourself that, and you need it validated. And that's why you're saying it over and over and over again. This is exactly what I went through. I shouted my abortion. I was proud. I didn't regret my abortion because I was telling myself that.
Yeah.
And, someone, maybe one of the adults in my life should have probably told me, hey, you need counseling, you need therapy, But if I had had a support structure, I probably wouldn't have had abortion in the first place. But
Well, and see, that goes back to when you're a 19-year-old and you go to your parent and you say, "I need advice." I just feel like, what happened to mom telling you what to do? I mean, why is this the topic that you I can't, if you're in, you're like, you're required to go to college, or you're required to do this, or you're required to do that.
Mhm.
But yet when it comes to this, oh, well, that's your decision, whatever you want to do.
Yep.
And I'm like, how are we supposed to make a good decision when we're young? We don't know. We're young, as one of my girls said, young and dumb. We don't know what we're doing. We're trying to get talk, like you said, you talk to so many people,
Mhm. Mhm.
and you get nothing. And then
Nope.
it's just like you just take we try to take what we think is the easy way out. and it isn't. It never is.
I remember. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember very shortly after, maybe 2 years after I had my abortion, the bodies exhibit had come through town. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was all the human bodies that were posed, and they were actual human bodies. And you would walk through this sort of museum exhibit and see all of the organs and all of the stuff. It was really pretty cool.
Yeah.
And there's a room where it's put off to the side, and it had a sign outside of it saying that, hey, some of this can be traumatic for women. And I thought, well, I'm a woman of science, and I am this, that, and the other thing. And I went into this room, and it showed women's wombs with babies in them. These were actual wombs with actual babies in them.
Wow.
And I was not prepared in any way for what I would feel walking through that. And I started to cry. I ran through the rest of the exhibit until the end. My dad, who to this day does not know that I've had a pregnancy terminated, came up to me at the end like, "Are you okay?" And I just kind of made an excuse, and I said, "Well, I'm a woman, and that was really hard." And him being a man, I think on some level he didn't want to know, or whatever. And it's like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And I told him, "Oh, I'm on my period. I'm emotional right now," so on and so forth. And he just let it go. But to actually see the baby in the womb, really, like, the word is cognitive dissonance, I think. And it's where you think one thing, but you're confronted with the reality. And because these two things don't fit in together, it causes you physical reaction, physical pain. And I had to run, like I ran through the rest of that exhibit. And that should have been my first clue that I wasn't regret-free.
Yes.
But
I think it's amazing that women, the common line is, or idea is, that women don't or can't regret abortion, and yet women regret haircuts. This is far bigger than a haircut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in what world is it? It doesn't make any sense to me, that because and they argue out of both sides of their mouth. This is a very serious issue, and it goes through a lot of thought. No one wants to have an abortion. No one wants to do this. And then on the other side,
Right.
they're like, shout your abortion. This is good. This is a good blah. You're right. Queens of denial. Like I haven't
Scary.
thought of it quite that way, and it makes so much sense. The way the propaganda, the way all of this works, is they can't make up their minds. It's like safe, legal, and rare has just been thrown out the window, while they're still making points out of the safe, legal, and rare handbook.
And if I can add to that, there's so much judgment in the secular world for the Christian perspective on abortion, saying, keep your theology out of my ovaries, and Christians are so judgmental, this, that, and the other thing. And I have to tell you, I didn't get any support for how I felt until I became a Christian and started talking to Christian people, and actually like speaking on like a one-to-one level with people who were pro-life, and they didn't judge me. They wanted to help me. They wanted to support me. I got none of that support when I was, because formerly I was an atheist. I will out with you about that, but I've in recent years converted to Christianity, and it was the first time in my life. I didn't expect that. I expected I have to keep this quiet, and I really have to give it to people, especially from like the anarcho-Christian community that I started to pal around with online. They were the first people I was able to be open with about my abortion, and they were so supportive and lovely about it. Like, really, it was the Christian community who gave me a safe place to land and cry and admit that I was in deep, deep pain and I needed help about this. And it's the perception is that Christians are so judgmental, and it has been the opposite experience for me. They have loved me in ways that I'm going to cry thinking about it right now, but they loved me in ways that I wasn't prepared for. And, I'm grateful.
That's
deeply
how it's
grateful.
supposed to be. That's how,
Yep.
and I'll be honest with you, I don't run into that many judgmental people, but there are some out there.
Yeah.
There are some
Oh,
out
yeah.
there, but I don't run into. I was at I had a table. I set up a display table, and there were some people come around, and you know, I caution the church. I don't think the church understands. Sometimes they'll say, and this is what, when I speak at a church, I'll say this. I'll say, you need to be careful of the words that come out of your mouth. If you say things like, well, I don't see how anybody could have an abortion, or I could never do something like that, you don't
Guess
know
what?
who's in earshot that has gone through an abortion experience. And that's not the love of the Lord. That's not the love of Christ.
That's right.
And that's judgmental. And there are people who will do that. And I had a guy that went past my table and he said, well, I'm completely against that. I just can't believe anybody would do something like that. And I just looked at him. I said, well, I had an abortion when I was 18. That's why I'm here. And then I started, giving him my story, and he just kind of backed up, and because he was an old man, like in his 80s or something. And then he's just like, okay, because I don't back down. I don't back down. My child did not die in vain. My child's life means something, because I am not going to let other women continue to go and suffer. If they want help, I will provide the help that they need,
It really struck me to know that at least in the Orthodox Church, we believe that I will see my child.
Yes.
I'm not without a child. I have a child. I'm a mother.
Yes, you are.
That child died, but I am a mother, and I will see my child. And that's a powerful.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not going to cry.
Well, so the tattoo I mentioned earlier says always. And people think it's from Harry Potter because there's this point where one character loves another and says always. But it came, this idea came, this is a tattoo I got after the miscarriage. It was a tattoo I got. I listened to a song by Switchfoot called Always. And one of the major lines in it is I'm always yours. And so when we had this happen, I had this moment where I needed to express the fact that I didn't get to hold her. Do I know it's a her? Yes. Can I tell you? Can I scientifically prove it? No. But I know it's a her.
Yeah,
and
you just
my wife knew it was a her, and I know in that moment that I needed to express the fact that regardless of what happened, that I'll always be her daddy.
That's right.
She's a part of me.
Yep.
And will always be a part of me. And I don't want to lose that. I don't like the Harry Potter thing, so eventually I'll get something cooler that expresses that. But that is the case, and there are different Christian denominations that believe different things about this, and all I'm going to say is that they're wrong.
Yeah.
I don't care what their justification is, they're wrong.
Yeah.
And I'll see her one day. You'll see yours one day. I'll meet my older brother Tim one day.
That's
and can't wait for that.
Yeah, so I told Cam once that I'll give you a minute to, because I know you're getting there. I told Cam once that I had named my child.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt really like almost kind of ashamed and weird that I named my child. And he told me that that's not that unusual, and that is in a way accepting what has happened and to honor the life of that person that only maybe existed for a couple of weeks, but that was a person. And so to name them is, I don't know, like a powerful way to acknowledge their life. And so you just said Tim, so I assume that's the name that you have given to your child.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That that was part of the process. Was, that's part of our process. I used to tell people that because it freaks them out. They won't go to my class, but but that is something that we encourage people to do. And not everybody knows if it was a boy or a girl. I just always knew mine was a boy, always. And some people you just know, and some people you don't know, and that's okay. You don't have to do that. But we pray about it, and God will usually reveal, and
Yeah,
and
that's what
God
happened
will.
with me.
And yeah, it's really cool. And it's like I knew I wanted to name him Timothy, and God gave me the name Andrew, so his name is Timothy Andrew. And I was like, well, cool. And one of the things you can do is, I mean, he's hanging up there with Jesus, right? And one of the girls that went through, and this is just such a blessing, is that when we were praying, all the moms are praying, and she said, I just envisioned in my head that I just saw all of our babies kind of huddled together over us, cheering us on.
Yeah.
Cheering us on. Yeah, you're going to make it, and I'm going to see you one day. And I'm in a good place. And we're going to be able to see our babies and not feel weird about it or dread it.
I was like really crying one time, just in deep grief. And I feel like the Lord spoke to me in a very special way by saying, she's okay. Yeah. Nothing bad is happening to her. Yeah. She's okay.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I am so sorry. I'm trying to keep my shit together.
You're good.
Yeah. So, I knew it was a she in that moment because I had this like revelation given to me, especially to let me know, like, you don't have to freak out. It's not like your baby's flying in the wind somewhere. She's with God. She's fine. You're the one that's in trouble and in pain right now. Yes. And I knew that it was a her. And I was like, I don't know, in a way, kind of like joyed to know that. And I gave her a name, and I'm gonna keep that to myself, I think, right now. But naming her was really important, and I think it makes me happy to think about her. Yeah. And to know that I am going to see her.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. There's actually,
now we're all crying.
Yeah. I'll take it off of you for a minute. We had a lady who went through, and she's I think her story may be up there as well, but her name is Denise Wilkes, and she's one of my facilitators, so I can give her name and all. But she wrote a song, and what happened was she was grieving, and she didn't know what to do with the pain, but she's a musician, and so she ended up writing this song and the music to the song, and it talks about how we will see our children running in a field of daffodils. And
I love that.
Oh, I can sing every word to that song. You won't want me to, because I don't sing as well as she does. But I would miss it completely. But I'm telling you, it is so powerful that we will go in and speak into places like drug and rehabilitation places and stuff like that. And if I can get Denise to come, I will, because she shares her testimony, and when she sings that song, it is anointed, and the women know I'm going to be able to. And that's what I want people to know. There's hope. You asked me in the beginning, there's hope. You don't have to stay where you are. And most programs take you through the grieving process, because you got to deal with all these undealt with emotions. But there's hope. And you can be okay. I'm okay. I can say abortion. I can say all this stuff without crying because I'm healed. I mean, completely. But I mean, I have been doing this since 2006, like probably before you were born. Yeah. But,
She's older than me.
No, I'm older than Cam.
So, but for real, I mean, that is the most important thing that I want women to know. There is help. There is hope. All you have to do is reach out.
Yeah.
You can go to pregnancy centers, and sometimes they will have people that can help you there. And there's a place called Concepts of Truth International, and I worked for them for a little while. And they're a 24/7. You can call them, and I probably should have looked up their number. I thought about that like some other time today.
We will put that in our description for our episode because a lot of people can't watch us live. They watch us on the replay. So
Okay.
we'll put the information for Concepts of Truth in our description.
Yes.
If you get the number to us, we'll put that down there.
Okay, I'll do that. So, and it's just, and it was just people like me, and people just need to talk, and I've had an abortion. This is going on, we aren't medical people, but we understand what you're going through. We understand the emotions, and we try to hook them up with an abortion recovery program somewhere. Sometimes they have weekends. We have small groups. Or even one-on-one counseling. So there are a lot of things out there. It's just we're the biggest secret ever,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to say to anyone who's listening, and this is the kind of thing that I said with the tattoo guys. One, if in your locality there are people who are helping women who are actually not preaching at them feminism or this other stuff, but they're actually trying to help women in your area. And if you can find them and donate to them, help them, you should. But I will say that if you would like to help my mother, if you would like to help her ministry, I highly recommend doing that as well. Directly on her page, I will link it. It's already linked in the description if you wanted to click it right now. But if you go to abortionrecoveryalabama.org, you can donate once. You can donate monthly if you want to, or you can do the smile.amazon.com and it's hooked up to her ministry, and she can make some money make some money, but get some donations to help women off that. So, look, I think that it's important to be a helper, especially right now. And so, be it my mother, be it someone else, if you care about this, if you care about women who are going through hell, be a helper.
Yeah. And I don't know if your center does this, Cindy, but there are centers that my church works with where they will get things like formula, diapers, cribs, car seats, the kinds of things that women need when they're going through pregnancy. They don't know what they're going to do. How am I ever going to support this kid? And I know that a lot of people think like pregnancy centers are just scary religious places that are going to make you feel guilty. A lot of times they're actually going to hook you up with resources. So, yeah.
Yes. And I found out something really, really cool. Yes, you can go to a pregnancy resource center or a pregnancy care center or whatever they want to call themselves. And basically you do your test, and they have stuff called mommy money or mommy bucks. They call them different things in different areas. But if you go and go to a parenting class, they have nurses teaching parenting classes, and you go through and they will provide that. And you get that mommy money or those mommy bucks, and then you can go to their boutique. You can get car seats, you can get diapers, you can get, baby clothes, maternity clothes. I mean, it's an awesome.
Also,
people want to help.
For the men's side of things, I know at least one in Birmingham. If you're around Birmingham, Save a Life is really good, because Save a Life, I don't know if they're still doing it, but they would offer ultrasounds. They offered the one in Vestavia offered men doctor's appointments for free to get checked out for STDs and things like that. So I mean, it wasn't just there's that argument that they always make that pro-life people only care until the baby is born, and that has and always will be utter hogwash. And so and I'm just saying this particular part because it's not just the moms that they care for, not just the babies that they care for, but it's the dads.
Yes.
It's the men that are in crisis as well.
Yes.
So there are a lot of ways you can help people who need help, and do it voluntarily, and do it beautifully, and do it in a way that's good.
Mhm.
Just good. Do some
Yes.
good, man.
And I want to kind of talk a little bit. I hope I can remember the name of it. I think it's, Abby Johnson, who wrote the book Unplanned, and there's a movie out there called Unplanned, and she has an organization, and I was able to hear these ladies give their testimony it's a CareNet conference, and it's called uh, Until There Are No More or something like that. But what's so cool about it is they go in and we try to, or they try to, and I'm part of the pro-life community, talk to the people that are actually working at the abortion clinics, and try to get a relationship with them, because a lot of these people really think they're helping women. I mean, they're not necessarily the bad guys. There are some radical people out there that are, bleh, but there are people that generally think that they're helping women. And so all we have to do is talk to them and have a relationship with them and say, hey, and if you decide you don't want to be there anymore, we'll find you. And then there were none. That's the name of it. And then there were none. And so they'll try to get them to come out, and they will try to find them a job. And the same organization, and I'm not going to remember the name of it. I think it's Love Line or Love Life or something. But they actually gave out information. It's still Abby Johnson's behind this. They have people that give to their organization. So if you find out that you have somebody that needs something, they will contact that person. They will find the local people, and they will pour money into you. So if you want to keep your baby, you've got the financial support to do it. You've got emotional support to do it. You've got a place to live. We got it covered. It's all out there now. Now, we weren't always this organized, but we are now, and that's really cool. And
I think when it started to really get organized in a positive way was when they started calling it on Twitter fake abortion clinics or something like that. They call it like fake women's health offices and fake clinics. They kept calling it that. And I think it kind of coincided with the time that things were really picking up in a good way. So, I mean, there's always going to be a battle that goes on because, our enemies are they're more than human. It's not, we're not fighting. We're not fighting just humans.
Well, in the wake of this recent decision in Texas, there are so many people on social media talking about, if you find out you're pregnant, how are you going to get an abortion? As though abortion is the only option for you if you find out you're pregnant and you're not sure what to do. And so, like, a lack of information is a terrible enemy here. Certainly in my case, I thought that was the only responsible option that I had, that I was actually doing the responsible thing. And, I would like for there to be, and there definitely is more than I knew, resources. And only, because I've recently it took me years to find a church. And when I finally landed at a church, they have like an awesome pro-life ministry. And it was like, wow, so cool. There is amazing amounts of resources. And I feel like, I really want to be involved in this. I really want to help women who, I remember the exact moment, I'll never forget it, where I had a medical abortion. So they put pills in my hand. And I remember her handing me the pill, putting it in my hand and saying, "Are you absolutely sure?" And then I said, "Yes." And she put the pill in my hand. And I wonder constantly what would have been the response if I had said, "No, I'm not sure." And I think that what you're saying about like communicating with people who do work in abortion clinics just in case there's that flicker of that moment of, "No, I'm not sure."
Yeah.
Well, guess what? There's stuff for you. Well, and that would change things.
Let's hope they would do that. Now, they do have quotas to meet. They are selling abortions. So, that
is a product.
It's according to, who you get. But I will say there are people out there like that. And this is a really cool story. We're talking, oh my goodness, probably 21, 22 years ago. my pastor found out about one of the counselors at the abortion clinic called my pastor and said, "Hey, we've got a girl. You don't care anything about the babies." He said, "Yeah, we care about the babies. If you want, we'll take care of anybody." So anyway, this lady came in. Her boyfriend had tried to strangle her to get her to the abortion clinic, and it was just a horrible situation. Well, my pastor went to my assistant pastor, who came to me. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing." But it's so cool. This woman who Cam knows, you know who I'm talking about? I don't know if I should say her name. But her son.
Did I work with her at one point?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And for 10 years, I sent him a birthday card every year because we did whatever it took. And what was so cool about it was when she felt so desperate, she had no place to live, she had no finances or anything. And we just came in. It's not that we took care of her. We prayed with her, and God provided a car. God provided a job. God provided all this around her. And now that child is like just got married and is the love of her life. I mean, I don't know what she would be like without him.
Yeah.
And she still contacts me occasionally, and it's just like, thank you, Lord. That was probably our first save, So that is just, I mean, and not only that, but now he'll have children. So there's a legacy. When we take when I took Timmy's life, I took his children and his grandchildren. So I took a whole legacy. I took a whole bunch of people, a whole generation after. Yes, out.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
It's just something to think about, the repercussions of that.
Absolutely.
But you had me, and I have repopulated the earth, and I think I'm going to do the whole thing at this point. 3 boys, 2 girls. I mean, I created a legacy. Hopefully you're proud of it.
My husband's grandmother Margaret passed away recently, and she had 5 children. And she died. She was 94 years old when she died. She had 5 children, and there were 200 people that showed up to her funeral that were the direct result of her womb.
Wow.
That woman made a tribe of human
Think about
beings.
what you've done.
Yeah.
Mom, because I've got 5. My little sister has 4.
Yeah.
My brother has 1. I mean, look at he's a slacker.
He's gonna catch up.
I mean, we know through political and internet circles, Joshua Smith, he's got 9 children.
Yeah.
So the resulting human beings that will iterate from this, already huge tribe of kids, it's like, just unfathomable generations to come from this. Yeah.
Well, I think it was good that you hit on hope, because that is the entire
whole point
of our show.
Yep.
Is hope. No. Because we live in dark times. Yeah. I think that most of humanity has lived in dark times. There have been a couple bright spots, but right now there are a lot of people who are hurting, who feel lost, who lost their job, who lost family members, who from death, from suicide, or from just
COVID.
What's the word? Shunning them for having a difference of political opinion.
Oh God, yeah.
We have a lot of people that need hope, and it's funny because I talk about hope, and we ask everyone who comes on the show what gives them hope right now. What's something that motivates you and keeps you going on? And it's so hard because people will ask. I've been asked that question once, and there's my ultimate hope, which is which is the thing that differentiates me from most people. I don't see. It's not that I don't understand hard times. I don't understand rough times. I've been in them. I've had them. we're working through things, but I have the hope of the resurrection, of the end, of the return of the King, not by J.R.R. Tolkien, but Jesus. But what is? I'll just go ahead and float the question out to you now. Besides the return of the Lord, which is the ultimate hope, what is something? I mean, you can just keep talking about that if you want to. I'm fine with it. But is that plus? Is there anything else that really gives you hope right now? That really makes you feel like life's worth living? That you've done something good, etc.
Well, I really was when I heard you ask this question on some of the other things, that is the very first thing is Jesus is coming back soon. Yeah. And I'm like there, yeah. I am just
me too.
Whenever you're ready, Lord. It could be any day now that everything's lining up for real. Yeah. But so that is my ultimate hope. But I will say that my hope is also in my children and grandchildren, knowing that one of the main things I want to do, I want to be able to share the gospel, disciple people, which is pretty much what I do in the abortion recovery. But the other goal is to see my grandchildren as much as I can, because I want them to know that they have a grandmother that loves them with all of her heart. And, that I want them to know Jesus, and I want to know them to know the love of Jesus. And I know Cam had the honor of, you might want to talk about how you've had your boys pray with you. And it was just like, that's what it's about. Yeah. That's what it's about,
Well, and also you should come around because they're just gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say too, the couple of things that I listened to, I'm just really proud of you, Cam. The whole, it's like, I think I live in the South in Alabama. I'm kind of in my little Christian bubble, but you kind of think outside of the bubble. And I like my bubble. I'm not complaining about my bubble. I'll stay in my bubble, but I love the way that you can gently turn something around by speaking truth into, by sharing a Bible verse that some people maybe not even know that it is a Bible verse, or maybe you've even called it out, but it's like it. And you're doing the same thing, Jessica. It's so cool. It's like people are like this, but it's like it's trying to connect. I don't know if I made any sense on that.
No, yeah, you're also, thank you.
Yeah. But it's like you're trying to help people to see this is real, and it doesn't have to be some kind of spooky, weird thing over here. This is real life. And we just do life together, and we do the best we can. And God has a plan and purpose for every life and every person. And once you get a hold of what that purpose is, what that plan is for your life, like I knew when I went through that class, that this was my purpose in life, you can be happy because you are doing the thing that you're called to do. And you guys probably have found that even in this podcast, you're doing a lot of that, I would say.
Well, it's funny because I've never told this on the podcast, but do you remember Todd? And he spoke over me. I had a prophecy.
Yes.
When I was a kid.
Yes.
And he talked about how I would go on to write.
Right.
And I remember hearing that and going, "Oh, that's nerdy. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that." And I tried not to do that. Mm-hmm. And then over time, it was like I realized how much, I do write on occasion, but it's not my primary mode. Mm-hmm. But it was one of those things that over time, I felt like what my calling was, besides fathering and discipling children, mm-hmm. which at a very young age, I knew I wanted to have kids. I knew I wanted two things: to be married and have children, and to have a beard. And it worked out. I've done it. But along the way, along the way, here's a funny thing. I'll keep going in a second. I wanted a beard because one time when I was a small child, my dad and I would watch Star Trek, the one with Captain Picard, Next Generation.
Yeah.
And Data looked so weird to me, and he always creeped me out. And I had a dream as a kid that I grew up to look like Data.
Oh no.
And it was like, oh, I don't want that. And so like that was part of my thing. Like, what, I would rather look like Riker. Let's grow the beard. I'll have a beard. I'll be good.
Fair enough.
But over my life, the kind of impetus was that my calling is to communicate and to share truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I'm a good communicator, I think. I try. And I thought, and I haven't talked about, I talked to you about this right before the show, and I'll say it on the show. But a couple of months ago, I was texting Jessica during this because it was like God had a laser sight in the middle of my forehead because I'd been doing a libertarian show.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'd done libertarian content, and we were already moving away from it somewhat. But there was this realization that I had made my ministry liberty, libertarianism, etc., instead of what it should have been, which is to communicate truth, to share Jesus with people.
Right.
And so that's the marked shift in the show.
Yep.
We're not talking about libertarianism anymore. We're not talking about politics. We're not talking about laws. We're talking about real life. We're talking about weird things at times. And we're talking about important things. And so if you have been wondering why Jessica and I aren't showing up on your favorite Liberty podcast lists anymore, that's why. Because we decided we didn't want that anymore.
In fact, somebody the other day said something to me along the lines of, I expected more for somebody in the liberty movement. I was like, how dare you, sir?
I'm in the Jesus movement.
Right. I'm in a very different movement than that. So yeah. No, and all power and love to our friends that are still in that movement and make that a big part of their lives. We're not saying that that's not something that you should be doing. It's just that, it's not our calling. Right. And we're on a different, maybe even adjacent path, but it's not about the politics, my priest had said something during my catechism class today about, I've been through many presidents, because we pray during the divine liturgy. We pray for the civil authorities, the president of the United States, because no matter who the president is, you want them to make good decisions. So we pray for them. And somebody asked along the lines of, hey, things are really political right now. Does anyone ever complain that we're praying for the president? And the priest said, no, not at all. I've been through many presidents. He's been a priest since, 1974, I think, something's really long time. He says, I've been through a lot of presidents. And I thought, isn't that great that presidents are going to come and go, but your priest is your priest. And, that's good. Gave me a sense of continuity in my life that politics is never going to give people. And so that was just my little addition to what Cam was saying about, we both just kind of at the same time were like, I'm bored. Are you bored? Like,
so bored.
Let's not do this anymore. And now, I know we haven't announced this yet, but we got a guy coming up. He's been attacked by sharks. Yeah. He's been attacked by 2 great white sharks. How would we ever fit that onto a political show? I have no idea. How would we do this very powerful and emotional conversation that we just had with you, Cindy, if we had to bring everything back around to some kind of political message? We just couldn't have had it in the same way. And so, I really appreciated how I think it's simpatico. Like Cam and I have been simpatico on these things, and I've really appreciated, just being included on the ride. Thanks, guys.
That's what was so funny. Was because the show was called Make Liberty Great Again, and Jessica had been on like the last 6 or something like that. I was just making her the unofficial co-host, even though she didn't want to be a co-host of something. Blah blah blah. And then
I literally
day,
told him, I was like, I don't want to be on a podcast. And he's like, yeah, okay, sure. But you're going to come on next week, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean.
And then one day I sent her a picture, which is the original logo, which is the with the yellow smoke. Actually, I think it was.
Yeah.
Was it? No, it's. What is it now? Yeah, it's the yellow smoke. And I'd said, and she goes, "Oh, that's really cool." And I was like, "Okay, so I'm rebranding. I want you to be permanent co-host. Are you down?" And she was like, "Yeah. Actually, I was gonna send you some music from. What was that? Go ahead."
What he said was, are we done pretending you're not my co-host? And I'm like, I guess. Oh my God.
Oh, that's great. He was a little manipulative there, huh?
It wasn't manipulative. I wasn't. I would just make the jokes, you know.
But you know, people in my life have commented to me about you and Cam. Obviously, have great like comedic chemistry. You have good timing together, that kind of thing. And so, like, I don't know, it just worked out. We found each other at the right moment, and I was very early on in sort of my journey into Christianity. And I didn't know who I was yet with that, or, you know, even though I don't technically have the same religion as Cam because I'm an Orthodox Christian. He's more on the Protestant side of things. He was an incredible resource for me in those early times and guide. And I am just like incredibly grateful. I think in a lot of ways God put us together, and like it's been a wonderful friendship. And so like I think that we're allowing other people to see the conversations that would be happening between us regardless of whether we were doing this live on the internet or not. And so we're doing, we're just broadcasting our conversations is basically what's happening here.
Yeah, because you know she'd be on the show and then we'd talk until like 3 a.m.
Yeah,
afterwards, and it's just like, why don't we just
about Jesus?
Why don't we just do this
for the most part?
You know,
yeah,
on the air.
Yeah,
yeah.
Why are we?
We're like, are we going to scare people away from us because we're talking about Jesus? And it's like, do we care if we're scaring people away from us? No, we don't, do we? And here we are. Sorry, what were you going to say, Cindy? I'm sorry.
Well, I just think it's so cool because God has called y'all to do all this like right now. And now is the time when we need to evangelize because, I mean, it really is getting close to the end. We're in like Revelation chapter 3 toward the end, right before 4. So, you know, there's a lot of countries that are lining up right now and coming up against Israel, and it's gonna be something. So
the hour is later than you think.
Yes, it really is. You know, and so I think that God is calling a lot of people out, and you've got an audience. You guys have an audience that I wouldn't have necessarily. So you're reaching, and that's cool. That is really, really cool, and I'm really proud of both of you for that. I think it's really cool.
And Cindy, I just have to tell you that I'm grateful. Cam asked me if I wanted to talk to his mom because this is what his mom did for a living, and I said yes, but I think everyone should talk to Cam's mom. Like the thing that you are doing is so incredibly important. And I hope everybody who listened to this podcast will go to your website, that they will donate to your organization, because the work that you're doing is like truly God's work. And I appreciate you so much from the bottom of my heart. Just this conversation, the work that you're doing, everything. Like, I love you. Like, I just want you to know. Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well,
and we'll determine my feelings on you based on what kind of birthday present I get next month. So
let's see. I think I spent all your money on shoes today.
Oh.
Not your shoes, my shoes. He always liked to. He always wanted Converse every year. I just need a new pair of shoes. I'm happy.
I just got some recently, so I don't need Converse this year.
Okay. Well, the other thing you always ask for is socks and underwear. Do you
Yes.
still need something?
Yes.
You know, I'm 38 years old, and I really wish someone was still like supplying me with socks and underwear. Like that would be so nice.
Oh, that's what his dad always asked for Christmas, and he said, "Now I get it. Now I get it."
The last thing I want to pay money on is socks and underwear. I don't want to buy shirts, much less socks and underwear. Like I will, like, I'm just going to end up turning into my dad, where I just wear those Levi's and I'm not going to do the New Balance. We had to get him out of those and throw him in Converse later. But still, I'm probably going to be a man of, what's the word? Not constant sorrow. I don't know why that went in my head. No, just routine, I guess.
Yeah.
But we do like to ask fun questions as well.
Oh,
So,
for Pete's sake. I know where this is going already.
No, actually you don't. Because I'm not going to ask the pizza question.
Oh, okay. Thank goodness. I'm done with the pizza question.
But I was going to ask you, why do you love my older brother more than me? I mean, I saw what happened after we watched Passion of the Christ. I saw what happened.
Wait a minute. What happened? What happened after the Passion of the Christ?
Well, there was a scene where Mary went up and kissed Jesus's feet, and at that point, I was so moved. We'd gone back to church after the movie, and we were all kind of talking it through because it was such an intense movie.
Yeah.
And I brought up that scene, and I said I could just picture myself kissing my son's feet, my oldest son's feet. And Cam has never let me live that down, that I wouldn't kiss his feet. I would only kiss his brother's feet.
It was Cooper. It wasn't even you.
Now I see how it is. I know the truth.
So you have to realize that Chris, all of his life, told Cam and Courtney that he was the favorite, and that they just didn't even need to try. And so he convinced them that he was the favorite and that, they were less than him.
Oh my.
And knowing Chris, Topher, he changed his name. We went to LA, but, but knowing he probably really believed it. He probably really believed it.
Well, the damage I did was, it wasn't even, I don't even know if it was all me, but I was the smart one. So I got that little feather in my cap.
Yes, you did. Hey, do you want to see Cam in football when he was in the 7th grade?
Look at that.
Yeah, he even got it. He's got a mean look going and everything. Look at that.
I really love this haircut. Please tell me there's a little rat tail back there.
No,
okay.
I wanted
boys
one
at that age would have the little rat tail.
So when I was 10, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace came out, and I wanted to do the little side braid that Obi-Wan had in that movie, a little tiny one with a little back ponytail.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kept asking Mom to let me do it, and I think she would have, but she knew I wasn't going to grow my hair out long enough to actually make it happen, so it wasn't a real threat. But I know when I asked her, she was like, "Don't do this, nerd."
No,
you're a good mom. Good mom.
Oh yeah, he had my mother, his grandmother, make him a Star Wars Jedi robe, and she actually made that for him. So
my husband has one, and it's still in our closet from the Phantom Menace Episode 1. Yeah.
It's a thing, I guess. It's a thing.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, I was 15 when that movie came out, and it was the first thing I ever skipped school for, was to go see that movie.
And it's not good.
And it's not good. Like, if I had gotten grounded over that movie, I would have been so mad because it wasn't even worth it. But I didn't get caught because, I'm elite.
That's funny.
So let me ask you my favorite on the spot question, which I think that you're more prepared for than anyone else in the history of the world. What's your favorite thing about me?
Your
He
children.
asks. Oh, okay. Oh, that's a great answer. Oh, I love that. Yeah, no,
I
it's good.
actually think that you're very compassionate and very loving and patient. So
Sometimes
with me. Now, maybe not with the kids all the time. I get it. I've never had 5. I only had 3.
You know what I've been wondering this whole time is how many times Mom has looked at my arm and seen that there's new color on it that I haven't shown her.
Yeah,
he's been very worried about you seeing his tattoos.
Yes, I listened to the tattoo episode, and when I heard him say, "I'm dying to get sleeves," I threw up in my mouth just a little bit.
Well, it's getting there.
No, please, no, please, no.
It's
please.
Gonna happen. You
I
need
know.
to come to terms with it.
I just.
And it makes me so happy.
There's nothing I can say.
But at least they will be better than that other relatives.
You tried, Cindy. I know you tried.
I did. I tried.
You did your best.
I mean, I'm cool with some, but come on, dude. Sleeves, really?
Yeah. There's look at my jackalope.
It's a jackalope.
Yeah.
I saw one of those when I went to Texas last week.
I didn't know you went to Texas.
I did. I went to San Antonio.
I feel like I saw something about that, but I didn't remember it. All right. Well, let me ask, because we're getting close to the very end. Is there anything else you want to share with our little audience? Not that one. Don't do that one.
I can't. I was going to ask. You're not going to let me do that one.
I will let you show Jessica after we're done here, but there's got to be some stuff that I troll the audience with that they don't get to see.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Look how happy it makes her.
To torture him, yes, I know.
Yeah.
What can I say?
I get my disposition honest.
No, for real. Cam is such a troll that I'm glad to see that someone trolls him at a greater level.
Well, you'll love this picture. You knew that's the first one I pulled out, right?
Yeah. No, I know.
Yeah, you knew. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
So beyond that picture,
yes.
Is there anything else you want to share?
Yes,
yeah.
I think that I would like to just say to anyone out there that's had an abortion that that going through a program will help you. These programs will help everybody, no matter where you are. Whether I've had women that have gone through that were pastors' wives, I've had women that go through that weren't even believers. I've had pro-choice people. I've had pro-life people. And just know that we're out there, and no matter where you are, you will be in a better place. And my job is addictive because people come in, and mine is 12 weeks or 11 weeks, depending, but they come in one way, and 12 weeks later, I see a different person walk out the door, and you can be that person. And there is hope, and we can help you if you'll just show up. And it's just amazing. Like I said, my job's addictive. I don't want to quit.
You have inspired me I plan to seek out a program, and I want you to know that you've inspired me.
Well, hey, if you can't find one, just call me up. We'll Zoom it.
Right on. All right.
Or
Yeah.
whatever it is we're on now. I think you guys are.
Yeah, I do Zoom.
You do
Yeah.
Zoom? Okay.
I Zoom it up. Yeah.
Okay.
I like Zoom because I'm right next to my coffee pot the whole time. I don't have to leave my house. So
Yes.
yeah, I'm into it. All right.
So with that, if you
Yes.
want to find out more, read some testimonies, donate, see what my mom's doing, you can do that over at abortionrecoveryalabama.org. Are there any other things that you want to share for people to get in touch with you, or is that just the best way?
To get in touch with me, that'd probably be the best way. And
I could give them your number.
Yeah, I thought about it, and I do have it on everything, but gee whiz, I don't know if I want everybody in the whole United States calling me. But yeah. But I did text you the Concepts of Truth International website and their telephone number, and
Awesome.
they're 24/7. And so if you're like panicking or in the middle of something, or fresh, or even if you just need somebody to talk to, that's a really great resource. And they refer to me as well, and others, not just me.
Okay.
All right. And so with that, I will pull you off the screen for the boring bets, but stick around so that we can chat afterwards. And then I'll list off all the things coming. But I love you. That's the first guest I get to say that to. Really. I love you.
Never do the heart. That's a heart.
Thank you for expelling me from your loins and then coming on to my show.
Okay. Yeah. Glad it wasn't all in the same day.
Yeah, that would have been. I'd be very gooey. Babies come out cheesy, man. It's
weird.
They
do. They really do. And a little cone-headed, So
yeah. So I thank you. I love you. I'll pull you off, and then we'll go through our rigmarole.
Okay, love you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So the rest of you. We have some cool stuff coming up. BT Dubs. Next week, Wednesday, we're going to have Monica and Brad back from the Propaganda Report. Awesome. I forget what day was it? Two days from now, about is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. We thought, who better to bring on to talk? Maybe we'll talk about 9/11. Maybe we won't. Who knows what happens with those two? But they'll be on next week. After that, we have the Odd Man Out. We're going to do an episode on Jim Jones and suicide, that suicide cult. It's going to be, I've read a whole book on it, so hopefully I can drum up some memories, talk about with him. And then after that, we're going to have...
Having been in a cult, that's when you guys are going to want to see, because I'll talk about my cult experience. So.
Ooh. And then after that, we're going to have Kate back from Burials and Beyond to talk about the uptick in spiritualism in the Gothic era, which should be interesting. And then after that, we're starting October, which is going to be a very interesting month. It takes the spooky in. There's going to be 2 very Christian episodes about topics that are not spoken about in the way that we're going to be talking about them. But to start October off, we have Jack Luna from Dark Topic coming on to talk true crime, and he's just a great storyteller. So I'm just really thrilled to talk to him. But beyond that, we have our list of things. Get some coffee, Run Your Mouth Coffee, rymcoffee.com. Use promo code TheMadOnes at checkout, and you will get 10% off. Also,
eventually we'll have cups that have our logo on them. Eventually,
once I figure it out. Then if you also like dried meats, you can head over to righteousfelon.com. Get any beef jerky. They're all very good. That Carolina Reaper was very tasty. But
the turkey jerky is so good. Have you tried the turkey yet?
Yeah, I've tried all of them. I've just been slowly working through. But if you want some of that, you want to join us on our journey as we try different cool things from cool people, righteousfelon.com. Promo code for this one is Mad Ones. No the on that. Beyond
Just
that,
Mad Ones.
support us if you can. We want to keep things going. We want to keep things paid for. Best way to do that is patreon.com/themadOnes. We have a couple patrons over there. We want to start some perks up and some hangouts and some Zooms and stuff like that for patrons soon. We're also, our entire backlog is on Rockfin, and we're going to start thinking about doing some exclusive stuff here or there. All of our episodes where we're talking to someone from another country are going to be on Rockfin first, and then we'll stream them onto YouTube and on Odyssey. So if you want to join us there, rockfin.com/themadOnes. I am on Twitter at Cam Harless. Don't look that up, Mom. I know you can hear me. You'll find out that I keep that
You don't want to know
off because I am a bad boy online. Jessica is at SoupCanarchist. Pick up some merch at wearethemadOnes.com/store. At wearethemadOnes.com, you can listen to our episodes there instead of watch. They're on all podcatchers. YouTube.com/themadOnes. We're on Odyssey, like I said before, and that's all I've got for you. That's the whole list of things. So with that, be a helper. Go out, do something good, help someone who needs it. Anything from you?
No, I really have to pee, so I'm ready to go.
Jessica has to pee. So with that, see you next week.